Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking a journey through one of the most vital and frankly busiest intersections in your entire body, the pharynx. It's really the unsung hero working behind the scenes of every single breath you take and every bite you eat. So let's just dive right in with a question. What part of you is a non-stop high-traffic zone for air, for food, and even for your immune system's first responders? Well, that's your pharynx. And believe me, it is so much more complex than just the throat. So here's what we're going to cover in this explainer. First, we'll map out the territory so we all understand the design. Then we'll get into what happens when things get blocked up top, move down to infections in the lower parts, and finally, we'll look at the more serious dangers and what you should really take away from all this. Okay, first things first, we got to get the lay of the land. I want you to think of the pharynx as a vertical hallway with, say, 3 different neighborhoods, and each one has a very specific job. We're going to start at the very top and work our way down. So, right behind your nose, you've got the nasopharynx. Now, its main job is to be an airway, but it has another really critical function. You see that little connection, the eustachian tube? That's the reason you can pop your ears on an airplane to equalize the pressure. Pretty cool, right? All right, let's head down to the next level, the oropharynx. This is the part you're probably most familiar with. It's what you see in the mirror when a doctor tells you to say, ah. It's a true crossroads, handling both the air you breathe and the food you swallow, a real multitasker. And get this, the area has its own built-in security system. It's called Waldeyer's ring. It's this strategic circle of tonsil tissue, including the adenoids and the tonsils you can see, that acts as your body's first line of defense against anything nasty you might breathe in or swallow. So, what happens when this upper passage, the nasopharynx, gets blocked up? Well, the consequences can range from something that's just a nuisance all the way to a serious warning sign. In kids, the #1 cause of a traffic jam up there is something called adenoidal hypertrophy. Basically, the adenoids, part of that amine ring we just talked about, get so big that they physically block the airway. And this blockage literally forces kids to breathe through their mouths. That leads to things like snoring and noisy breathing. If it goes on long enough, it can even change the way their face develops. That's the adenoid facies you see here. And because it blocks that eustachian tube, it's a huge cause of those frustrating, recurrent middle ear infections. Okay, shifting gears to something much more serious. Another cause of obstruction is a nasopharyngeal tumor. We're talking about malignancies that can grow silently in this hidden away space. And the tricky part is that their first symptoms can be super subtle and easy to mistake for something else entirely. Now, this is really important. Look at the pattern here. Notice that word unilateral. That means one-sided. A stuffy nose on just one side that just won't go away, nosebleeds from only one nostril, or hearing loss in just one ear. These are huge red flags that something is physically blocking that eustachian tube on that specific side. And it's not always about blockages. Sometimes the problem is structural, right from birth. A cleft palate creates a direct opening between the mouth and the nasal cavity. As you can imagine, this really impacts things like feeding and speech, and it takes a whole team of specialists a long time to correct. All right, let's head down into the oropharynx, the part of your throat you can actually see. This is where a lot of the battles against common germs are fought. And all that inflammation from the fight, that's what we feel as a sore throat. But here's the thing, not all sore throats are created equal. Far and away, most of them are viral. You get some general redness, it's uncomfortable, but it just needs rest and fluids. But a bacterial infection, like strep throat, that's caused by a specific bug, often gives you those swollen tonsils with white spots, and it absolutely requires antibiotics. No way around it. So what happens if that bacterial tonsillitis isn't treated the right way? Well, that infection can spread. It can actually escape the tonsil itself and start burrowing into the soft tissue right next to it. When that happens, it can form a dangerous collection of pus called a peritonsillar abscess. And this is a true medical urgency. The pain is intense and, there's that word again, usually one-sided. It can cause lockjaw, making it hard to even open your mouth, and it creates this very distinct, muffled voice. Doctors actually call it a hot potato voice. Just imagine trying to talk with a hot potato in your mouth. That's the telltale sign. All right, for our final section, let's talk about the most serious issues in the oropharynx. Because beyond infections, this area is also vulnerable to cancers, and understanding the risks and the warning signs is absolutely vital. The most common cancer we see here, by far, is squamous cell carcinoma. And we know its development is strongly linked to three major risk factors: tobacco use, heavy alcohol consumption, and more these days, infection with the human papillomavirus, or HPV. But here's the really important part. These cancers usually don't just pop up overnight. They are often preceded by visible warning signs, changes in the tissue called precancerous lesions. Any sore or weird patch in your mouth or throat that doesn't heal needs to be checked out. Seriously. And this brings us to two key terms you should probably know. Leukoplakia, that refers to persistent white patches, and erythroplakia, that's for persistent red patches. Now, not all of these turn into cancer, but they are a significant warning that needs to be looked at by a professional. So, after this quick tour through our anatomical crossroads, from swollen adenoids to life-threatening abscesses and tumors, what's the big takeaway? What's the most important thing to remember about this incredible system?
It really boils down to this dual nature, doesn't it? The pharynx is this elegant, amazing structure we rely on every second of every day. But because it's so exposed to the outside world, it's also a vulnerable front line where things can go wrong. It really highlights the delicate balance that keeps us healthy.
We hope this gives you a whole new appreciation for the silent, constant, and incredibly complex work your throat does for you every single moment. Thanks for joining us.